Who are we waiting for?
Mr. Chairman, this meeting is now live to the public.
Thank you. April meeting of the public. Roll call, I know David.
Is that Warren? We can't hear him. Can't hear him.
Oh. Is that better?
Much.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's better.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Thank you. David, I know David Karchevsky, he has a meeting in Annapolis. We'll have to have a substitute secretary for the day. Do I have a volunteer? Thank you, Julie. And you can give the attendance back to Tammy then, because she wouldn't know. Okay, very good. You've received the minutes as distributed. Are there any additions, corrections? Or if not, do I hear a motion for approval? Second?
Second,
Okay, I think that was Beal Smith. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those,
aye.
nay. All those opposed? Okay, they're approved as printed. Thank you, Tammy. Another great job. Today, I guess Patrick Seibold is we've got two presentations on the agenda today, and we'll try and make those the specific focus of the meeting and abbreviate the other portions if, or at least reduce the time commitment to those other portions. So Patrick Seibold, Director of Administration for the city, is going to give us a presentation on the Havre Grace Trolley project.
All right. Thank you, Warren. Good afternoon again, distinguished members of the Economic Development Advisory Board. I'm going to try to share a screen with you now, and hopefully this will all make sense. Let's see. See if you see it.
Yes.
What do you see? Oh,
The Havre Grace electric trolley.
perfect. All right. So as you may or may not be aware, we have moved forward to purchase some electric trolleys. When we put this program together, we had several initial scope and operation objectives. The first would be effectively transporting pedestrians around the city. Let me know, do you see that on the screen? Being economically viable to operate. In this case, it'll be approximately 1 penny a mile. The electric trolley will reduce the traffic congestions that we have because most of our public parking is not in the downtown area. We're also I'm looking across the street where the old high school once was. We are having another public parking area put in the site of the old high school. So we think it's going to go a long way in reducing traffic congestion. And it's going to be very good for the environment because it's electric. And also that Havre Grace itself and all of its facilities are on the Perryman grid, solar grid. So our carbon footprint is vastly reduced. Additionally, the trolleys will operate or at least initially will operate them Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, and also during special events if they were to occur on days other than the Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Our initial purchase is for 4 trolleys. In the initial fleet, we'll have anywhere from 2 to 4, but really from 1 to 4 trolleys in operation. Typically, 2 trolleys would be in service at any one time. And the reasons for that, I'll explain here in a few moments. The drivers of the trolleys will be part-time city employees. Hence, the drivers as well as the employees will be under the city's insurance. The trolley services will operate from April until November. That's a rule of thumb, again, depending on weather. If we have an extremely cold April, at times it's been known to snow, obviously the trolleys would not be operating. Or if the season is unusually cold, which would preclude tourism efforts, we wouldn't operate. The trolleys will not be operating in severe weather, which can also include like thunderstorms, those types of things, as these trolleys are open air. I'll show you a photo of those momentarily. Let's see, there you go. So, yep, that's it. This is a 15-passenger electric trolley. Can you all see that? Okay, great, it's still coming through. What I'm showing you here, though, our trolley will not have sides on it, and I'll show you that in a moment. But what I wanted to capture with this photo is the advertising banner that will be on our trolleys. This will facilitate. It's really promotional for our various businesses and or events that could be happening in the downtown area. This would be what our trolley would look like. Well, it just doesn't have the banner. I couldn't find a photo that would show an open air trolley with the banner box on it. So this would be your 15-passenger electric trolley. They operate at, they cannot exceed 25 miles an hour. Our buses will have, on this side here would be, there will be actually pieces put in that prevent people from discharging into the street side. So in other words, the only way to enter and exit this trolley will be from the curb, on the curb side, on the side we're driving on. Inside of these, there will also be a camera that will record events while the trolleys are operating, or even when they're stationary. But whenever they're on, the camera's on, and that's downloadable. And again, really for safety, as well as if we were to have an occurrence where we would have a passenger either have an accident or exhibit behavior that would maybe require them to be discharged from the trolley, we would have that on footage. It also protects our operator as well, and for us to monitor our operator and their performance. All of these trolleys are going to be equipped with GPS, so which I'll have on my phone, myself and another member of the city staff. So at any one moment, we know where the trolleys are, if they're moving, if they're stationary, if they are stationary, how long they've been stationary, et cetera, et cetera. And we maintain a database then on the operation of these. This may be a little hard to see, so I'll go up to the next one. This is the route. Now, please understand, all of this is our initial concepts, and they are subject to change because, as you all know, when a general lays out a plan for an attack, it's all good until the first fire is shot, and then we go to plan B, C, and so on and so forth. So this is the general route that we would be taking. As you can see and there's on this route, we have 8 initial stops. Now, if people want to stop along that route and a driver feels it's safe, we can certainly stop the shuttle and let them off. Also, initially, when we do our first couple of runs, when I say that the first few days, maybe the first couple of weekends, we'll probably have 2 city staff on each one in the front and one in the rear to observe like just behavior. If there's other stops we need to incorporate, just how to improve. I mean, this is going to be a continuous work in process for us because this is a service that we're providing to make for the visitor and our residents to have a pleasant experience. I mean, that's the whole purpose behind this. As you can see, though, the way the stops or the route is located on the city, it passes our public parking areas. It also passes most of our, what would I call it, sites and spots that citizens, local and otherwise, want to visit and see. And it keeps us off the state highways, which is something we wanted to do, even though every street is 25 miles an hour or less. Well, it's 25. So we remain in compliance with Comar and those types of things. Someone had a question last night about how does that affect us with 155? As you can see, we're not approaching 155 or Superior Street. We're staying off of that. Everything is downtown. There is no plans at this time to leave the Old Town envelope. So,
Patrick,
yes,
would you mind going back to the previous slide?
this one or this one?
This is the map slide, please.
No, you want the interim one, Adam, the first map.
The other map is actually,
The
Okay,
map
that map,
showing-
which is the same as the other one. It's just not landscape.
Okay. Sorry, Patrick, go continue.
And that's fine. That's okay. Now, if you, I landscaped it just so I could fit it on my slide a little easier, because while I can do a little bit electronically, I am no guru by any, yeah, I'm no Bill Gates. So anyway, what you'll see here though on this slide is where we were coming up St. John's. We did an alternate route. And this is always back up to Union Avenue, like when we're doing our First Friday event. So you have to modify it some. So we would have encroached onto Union for the 4 blocks till we got back down to Warren Street, and then we would then proceed on to Water and then back over to Juniata. So that's the route as we forecast it, just to let you know, and I'll go, the bullet points are really I'm talking about now anyhow. This route, believe it or not, takes 15 minutes to make a complete loop, and that's stopping at the 8 stops. And when I say stop, we allow approximately 30 seconds, and 30 seconds can be a long time. So it takes 15 minutes to make a route or a complete loop. So the loop itself is 3.52 miles in length, approximately. With the 8 stops, we can make a loop in 15 minutes. The trolley operates at approximately for 50 miles, actually a little bit longer. But if you allowed for nighttime with all the lights on and accoutrements, I think 50 is probably a fair number. I always like to be on the conservative side. With that all in assuming 50 miles, 15 minutes, 3.52 miles in length, it's taken 3.5 hours, or a trolley can run 3.5 hours between charges. So our initial hours of operation would be Fridays from 5 until 10, Saturdays from 11 until 10, and then Sundays from noon until 7. And we thought that we would begin our operating by charging passengers $1 a day. So you could ride all day for $1. And that's really the long and short of it. And it was very brief, I guess, but there's been a lot of thought go into this. But let's see what kind of questions you have, and then we'll see how well we thought this out.
I have a couple of questions, Patrick.
Any question except from Warren would be accepted at this time.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding with you, Warren, of course. Now I got to try to, I don't know how to get my screen off of there. Oh, I can stop share. That's a good one. Do you want, I'll leave the screen up in case I need to revert back to one of the pictures. Go ahead. Uh, I'm not getting you.
Okay, are kids allowed to ride it or alone, unaccompanied? Or,
My kid wanted to take the trolley to the turf field.
Are children allowed to ride unaccompanied? That's a good question. I guess we could put a limit to that. But children maybe under 10, unless accompanied, or under 12. That's a good point. I'll have to actually also check with our insurance provider and see if they have a call out for that. So I do not have an answer, but I can get an answer.
yeah, it does, it makes some sense because kids want to go to recreational facilities while other people want to go touring. Other question,
Dare I ask, should I ask for ID for these children, or just, is this a state that we have to ask for ID? Never mind. Go ahead. Next question.
Drive my kids in the turf field. I think it's easy to say, go take the trolley.
I couldn't hear you. Can someone translate for me?
she's saying that it would be easier to tell her children to take the trolley to go to the turf field than to drive them there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I don't see really where there would be much issue depending on their age. Since the trolleys are staying in town, we're certainly not going to be taking children really away from our locale. So I don't foresee much of an issue there. I just have to double check on if it would be an age requirement that they could be unaccompanied. Oh, and I didn't point out these shuttles also have seat belts. So everyone will be in a seatbelt. So this wouldn't just be like a go-kart for a kid to jump on and jump off kind of thing.
Patrick, this is Robert Andrews with Harford County. Is there a passenger portal in order to track the units in real time through the GPS positioning system, or is that only going to be reserved for city fathers and city employees?
The GPS that we have at this one is strictly internal. We have explored external ports for tracking. Adam could chime in on that. They get a little pricey. I think for me, I would like to just see how this would work and what that demand would be, or request for that service. Because like I say, it's a hefty sum of money.
We've explored a couple of these options.
I would say if I have two trams in this, I have all these names for them: shuttles, trolleys, trams, buses. Work with me. If you have two of these vehicles, how about that, in the loop at one time, you think it would not be, worst case, 7.5 minutes between one leaving and one arriving. And it would probably be less than that in most cases. So
Sure.
I don't know that it would be that prudent to have to know where they're at. Now, I would think at our trolley stops, we would have the map configured on there with a little star saying you are here, which may give people a sense of kind of where they're at. Also with the strobe light that we would have, I think it'd be fairly easy to spot them too with that and or the signage that we have on them. But we have explored that because we thought that'd be a kind of a cool app to have for people. I'm just not sure if the economics are just supported at this juncture.
When it comes to that point, I do have possibly a suggestion. If it comes to that point and it seems like there is a need, there might be an opportunity to dovetail onto Hartford Transit's current system, which would probably cost nothing other than just a tracking mechanism that's required. And they already have a platform, it's already there, and you could just link with QR codes or whatever, a link to that particular site. So just something to think of in the future, Ben.
Since, while I'm here, before I leave, I'll run up to the council chambers and get your card or contact information, because I'm sure Adam and I both, I'd love to explore the possibilities of that.
Patrick,
Yes.
Patrick, if you have 7.5 minutes, I understand that, and I think that's reasonable, but if you have a first Fridays or something, 15 people would fill up in a heartbeat. Is that what the 4 trolleys are for? Would you bring more out on those events?
Yes. Yeah. Clark, I think that's you.
Yes.
We can work more in when we have major events or we see the crowds. Again, this is going to be a kind of a learning process. Now, with that being said, also understand those peaks would probably come, well, if you think about it, a trolley, then if I got 3.5 hours, I could really run them pretty hard. Then I got to take them offline and have them recharge. And recharge is, they do not have quick charges. So for a complete charge, it would take me at least 8 hours. I can get about an 80% charge after about 3 to 4 hours. So in answer to your question, we can pull more trolleys into service when we're having peak demands. But then I need to either siphon 1 or 2 back off, or understand that I can't give that type of full, well, hopefully I would not have those number of people, or I just need to buy more trolleys.
Well, you're correct. It's learning process. And the other thing, my eyes weren't that good to follow that map, but it looked to me that it covered all of our marinas. Am I correct in that?
You are correct. And I'll be happy to forward this PowerPoint to all the members too, so you can have it.
Thing to get the marina people and the transient people out around town.
Was that a question?
No, he,
Okay. He's
yeah,
giving me
Clark was emphasizing that it would serve to get marina people around town more engaged in having a grace.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, other questions from the members? I do have some questions, Patrick, sorry. And you just answered the first one. Can we distribute this to members? One thing that occurs to me that could be an impediment is if 15 people came up and they all were paying their dollar at the same time. Will there be points where people can, like at the tourism office and city hall, where they can buy their $1 pass for the day? Or will it be a kiosk at the parking lots? Is there a way to expedite the purchase of the tickets?
Yeah,
Can they
we
even
could
be
do,
purchased online? I actually think purchased online could be very interesting for people from out of town.
yeah, I don't really foresee much issue with that. I think time you give whomever their cut of it. But again, this is really service based. It's not that the city's looking to really make any kind of an income off of this. If we can help underwrite some of our trolley driver fees, we'd be pretty happy. This is really just a service. So yeah, we could look online too. We had thought about, we could have them set up at like the tourism office in a couple of places, but you bring up a very good point. People coming into town from out of town would probably want to purchase online, and then they could just, bring it up on their phone.
Well, if they're looking down the bay and they're saying, do I want to go here or here or here?
Yeah.
They see there's a trolley system. It actually ends up being an asset that
Sure.
could directly affect the interest. Okay. Special events. Should someone have a massive wedding or something in the city, is it contemplated that they could move people from a common parking area and pay the cost of a trolley to take back and forth for that event?
Well, I hadn't thought about that, but I guess it could be, I have to also double check the law on that, like a for hire type of service for private parties. But it would seem to me that if we're having a wedding, they would probably be using it anyway, if it was occurring while we were running, if it's going past one of our locations. If it's something other than that, it wasn't my initial or the administration's initial thought to sublet these out as such. That's just another area that we'll just have to explore a little bit. This is really designed more to just help support the city itself and those events that occur in and around it. So we'll just have to explore that one, Warren.
Okay. I guess it's not, it's probably inappropriate or not contemplated, but at some point, I guess I wonder if there's any connection in the future for Chesapeake Industrial Park or the industrial west end of the city.
You know, I don't know. I think again, interest and inquiries and also our learning will drive a lot of that. Because with the Chesapeake, with the industrial park area, most of the facilities out there, I believe, have ample parking. Now, if there are people living in town, like I say, these vehicles are not permitted to go on any state streets and all that exceed 25 miles per hour. So I'm not sure that would be it would really provide much of a service for them. But
You couldn't go cross country.
Patrick, I believe to the speed limit on Revolution in that area is too high.
yeah,
It's 35.
35.
yeah.
Has a stop right there at Stansel Field. That takes them right into
Well,
downtown.
Unless somehow I could jump across the back way up Chesapeake Drive and cut through the Public Works parking lot and then come back out on the Clark Road.
Well, it's a question for the future. Patrick, when do you anticipate this service coming in?
Well, our initial delivery is anticipated to be the end of June. And I say that because these trolleys, of course, require several components. As you can imagine, they are assembled to order. We purchase these from the manufacturer. These do not come from a dealership. And as such, as you hear on the news all the time, supply chain is not what it once was. So I say the end of June, but I'm bracing for some delays, which would be unfortunate, but it's just the nature of what we're dealing with right now.
Right.
Patrick, have you set ad rates for your, see what kind of revenue you can bring in for advertising on them?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all that.
Have you set advertising rates for your ads on the bus?
No, I haven't put those together yet. We are actually we have a little think tank on that right now. Part of that being, going back to that, Clark, as it relates to supply chain. I've already reached back out to the manufacturer to give me the dimensions for that. And while they do that, their subcontractor who makes these is actually getting the components now to assemble them. And so as he's doing that, then he's going to forward those measurements to me, which then we can roll out because we do want to give all of our businesses and entrepreneurs opportunity to get a space on here. And I think it would be, and we're not sure about this yet either, folks, is that if it would be like if you purchase a spot on a trolley, it would stay on there for the entire season. The idea of changing these out monthly or whatever, I think gets a little bit I don't think it'd be worth the expenditure either on our part or on the entity. So I would rather make it something that you would have a season's worth of advertising. I think that would be very attractive. It won't be too terribly expensive, whatever that means in today's economy. But I just think it's much more manageable too for us. So Clark, as soon as I can get some of that information, we'll have it out. And once we get the details worked through, there's a 10, just so you know, there's a total of 10 spots that would be on each trolley, 8 on each side, 1 on the front and 1 on the rear. So there's even, you could, I guess, consider wrapping what little bit of a shroud you have in the front of it as well. So long. And that maybe we might reserve that though for like city stuff or something. We'll see.
Patrick, this is Terry Kearney. I had a question. If the driver is going to be the only person other than the passengers on the bus, like take, for example, like somebody mentioned a First Friday, how is that driver going to maintain order on the bus as far as who gets on and who gets off?
Well, I mean, I guess I would hope most people are pretty civil. If they're boarding and disembarking on the one side instead of both sides, I think that helps to preclude, and it almost creates a little bit of order because you can only get on if there's room to get on because you got this to one side. If we have a situation where, I don't know, people get unruly and they're pulling people off so they can get on, I think it's time to maybe shut the bus down and call the police.
You would hope that wouldn't happen. I was just thinking about, especially like on an event like First Fridays where it would be very crowded. And so it sounds like it's up to the bus driver to determine who gets on. Like if he has 20 people standing there with tickets to get on.
Yes, I guess that's really the case. I mean, again, I think too, if we're seeing that, if we're beginning to see like we're loading up, we'd be calling another bus into service pretty quick.
Okay.
So, I mean, with the buses, just so you know, or the trolleys, they would be parked, they're here at City Hall is where they would disembark from. So if you look at that route, I could get to any location from City Hall surely within, if I'm going directly there, well, within 7.5 minutes, even if I went to each stop on the way. Like in other words, as soon as I was to pull one into the circuit, so to speak, I could get to the most remote spot within 7 minutes.
All right. Thank you.
Did you come up with your cute name for it yet?
Did I do well?
Patrick, have you decided on a cute name for it yet, Julie?
No, we have been, we're stumbling and fumbling. We have a lot of cute names out there. Nothing is just landed home with us yet. We've come up with, we probably have looked at about 15 different names that we could put in writing. And so, yeah, we're still up and we're open to suggestions. It might even get you one free loop around if you have the winning name, depending on the cuteness.
Hey, Patrick, this is Rich. Is the intent to be an actual paper ticket or electronic phone ticket, or has any thought been given to, because it's a day pass, something like a wristband, so that as the passengers are getting on the bus, the driver doesn't have to actually stop, turn around, and check a ticket? They'll just be able to flash it as they're walking by.
Right. The wristband has been the component that we've kind of focused on first, and it could be something as what would I call it? Like you get when you go into a beer garden, a little paper tag that you can just tear off when you're done with it. It'd be easily identifiable, very low cost. So even if people purchase it by phone and they're coming into town, if they were to show the driver could give them one of those and to put on their person, and then they'd have it for that day. And then each day we would just go with a different color. I think that would be the most innocuous and the easiest to work with as we're getting started on this. Other we start cutting loose yearly passes at some point, or annual passes.
Yeah, I was just thinking from the viewpoint of the discussion about the driver being responsible for loading and unloading, that if he's got to stop, get up and walk back and check tickets, it's going to.
Oh, yes, I would agree with you. And between you and the 12 people that are watching us right now, or whomever else might be on TV, if someone was to hop on and they didn't pay, it's not going to, I don't think, shut the program down. So, I mean, a lot of this too is kind of somewhat, I don't want to say honor-based, because we are asking for a wristband or some form of, noting that the person has paid. But again, we're really focused on the service component of it. So, yeah, we certainly aren't going to put our drivers into the situation where they're going to deny somebody to board. If they said, look, I've already paid, the driver's not going to say, well, I don't know that, and you can't get on. I don't want to put our drivers into that situation. It's just not worth it.
Any other questions? One from the public? I don't. I'm not sure. I can repeat it for you.
My name is Kevin Ernestine. I serve with the MTA and the county around Baltimore City.
Did you hear that, Patrick? Kevin Orsini, he was served with the MTA on traffic around Baltimore City.
Car registration and so forth.
Okay.
I've done all that. I've actually put Greyhound back on the map on the Route 40 corridor between Baltimore City and Winston stop.
Mhm.
And you can dig that bus stop in and have it about 9, 10 in the morning at the old 7-Eleven, and then it will be back about 2:30 when it comes back out of Wilmington. They've been there for 3 or 4 years now, and they're running strong. I keep in touch with them down in Texas, is where Greyhound operates from.
Good.
So I have a lot of knowledge on this.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Any green lights? No. Okay, Patrick, thank you. I guess we should feel good about having provided a letter of support for having these vehicles, having the state law changed to allow these vehicles. Any rate, if there's nothing else, Patrick, thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
Sure. Hopefully, the committee or the commission still supports them.
I don't think
Everyone nodding. No one shaking their head. No, right? Okay.
I think enthusiastically,
Oh, good.
and the presentation was excellent.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. You all take care, and hopefully I'll see you on it, on the trolley.
All right. Thanks, Patrick.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Okay, the next presentation is going to be given by Volley Ford of Multitech engineering firm, and a long time Havre de Grace resident, known to most people. Volley. I'm not sure how do we get Volley on the system? Oh, okay. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe Erica is passing out 2 pieces that will assist you, I hope, in things I'm going to discuss. This refers, my presentation refers to what I consider to be a very, very strong economic development opportunity of a far-reaching consequences for the city of Habitat Grace and particularly downtown. And I'm referring specifically to a city block that's on the waterfront, that's bordered by St. John Street, Pennington Avenue, and Congress Avenue. And that city block is not a square block, it's more of a parallelogram. However, it encompasses approximately 3.62 acres, plus or minus. And that city block is owned currently by three property owners. And if you look at the black and white simplified, yes.
Adam, is there any way we could show this online?
Okay. I'll try to be as verbally descriptive as I can for those who can't see it. Okay. These properties are what is known as the Asher property. That's the large pink warehouse. It's been in the Asher family for, I'm told, close to 100 years or even more. It goes way back. The Pencil property, which was the property of George Pencil before he passed away, and it was handed down or inherited by his daughter, Judy, who lives out of state. And then a narrow rectangle that's right alongside Congress Avenue, where the farmers market is held. And that's Bill Brandon's property. Now, for the first time ever, in what I consider to be a very unique confluence of events, all three of these properties are available at the same time. And taken alone, these three properties, they're nice properties. They're all three have waterfront exposure, but they all three have unusual dimensions and unusual shapes and unusual circumstances, which leads me to firmly believe that these properties, even though they're available at this time, are worth much more as a combined property than they are individually. And for obvious reasons, if you see the plats of the properties. Now, I'm going to take you back to a vision that goes all the way back to the early 90s. In my first stint as chair of the City Planning Commission, we were charged with coming up with a comprehensive plan. We were way behind. We hadn't done a comp plan in a long, long time. And so we had to roll up our sleeves and go to work for the 1996 comprehensive plan. And so the Planning Commission hosted a workshop, and we held it over at the Donaldson Brown Center across the river. And this workshop was made up of the different city commissions that had anything to do with land use, which includes this advisory board, Planning Commission, the Board of Appeals, and the city elected officials and the key city administrative heads. And we went over there and spent an entire Saturday. And we basically selected, it was called a gaming exercise. What would you do with this piece of property? What's the highest and best use if somehow you could wave a magic wand and it became available? And of course, at that time, this property was not available as an entire property. And so we came up with 6 scenarios around the city. And this was one of the 6. And we divided these groups up into, I believe it was 6 groups. And each group had representatives from each of the city groups that I mentioned earlier. And they didn't know what each other was doing. And each group gained the highest and best use for the property. And this was to create a vision for the future of Habitat Grace. And when we all came together at the end of the day, and we went around to these different properties that were in and about the city. We got to this one, and every single one of the groups came up with the same thing, not knowing what the other groups came up with. And that was a boutique hotel conference center that was not designed to just serve the citizens of Havre de Grace or just people that happened to visit Havre de Grace. It was designed to be a regional conference center to draw government conferences and corporate conferences from all up and down the eastern corridor, from Northern Virginia all the way up to New York City. Because we were right on 95, we were right on the transportation corridor, Amtrak, MARC, and so forth. And we had this gorgeous waterfront. And we had this intimate, beautiful downtown that was almost like a throwback to a previous era. It was a storybook downtown. And that was not to be had anywhere else up and down this corridor. This is unique. And we knew it was unique. And those groups knew the same thing. And so that was a vision, and that vision got planted into that comprehensive plan. And 3 years later, in 1997, the city commissioned a urban design and waterfront study, which I have right here, a copy of it. And that, they basically hired an outside firm to essentially scheme the highest best uses all up and down the waterfront with all different locations from the lighthouse all the way up to the lockout. And when they got to this property, they did the same thing, not knowing what we had done. They came up with the same highest and best use. And some gorgeous pen and ink sketches in here of what they envisioned could be put on that property. The specific advantages of that property, taken as a whole, are, of course, it's on the waterfront. It is in the immediate downtown. Immediate means you walk out the door and you're in downtown. According to our current zoning ordinances, that property is exempt from on-site parking requirements for commercial uses, not for residential, but for commercial. And so is the rest of the exempt district downtown. And what that means is, even though if a hotel went there, conference center, and even though they certainly would want to put as much parking on the property as they could reasonably put on the property, they would not be beholden to the formula that's in our ordinance. And more importantly, they could go across the street or down the street and acquire additional property for the parking serve that facility. Whereas our ordinance says, if you are required to have on-site parking, it's got to be on that site. So that's a tremendous help. This property is also loaded, just absolutely loaded with extensive impervious surfaces that exist today. Now, a lot of folks don't know what that means and what the implication is for developers, but it's in the critical area. Of course, right on the waterfront. Every square foot of impervious surface, anything that's paved, any rooftop, or any kind of hard packed ground that's not natural ground, every square foot of such that exists there today can be traded square foot for square foot for future imperviousness. So in other words, if you wanted to tear down the buildings that are on those properties today and tear up whatever paving is there, and then have that documented by a licensed civil engineer or surveyor, when you go to build your new facility, you get to count that as a credit. And there's a ton of credit there. That entire yard that's in the front half of the pencil property that you see right there in your diagram. And you can actually see, if you look at that color piece that I gave you, you look and you'll see that yard that's a slightly different color. It's between the pencil house and the Asher warehouse. It looks almost more gray than green. Every square foot of that is 18 inches thick CR6 that's deeply packed. I mean, tightly packed. It's just got grass growing on top of it. So you get a credit for all of that. These things mean a lot to developers and to costs. This is also HUB zone qualified, this property, historically underutilized business qualified. And that makes it eligible. Erica can tell you a lot more about how that works. But that is a big plus here. The waterfront on this property is not good dockage. I mean, it's put a marina in front of this property. Until you get right to the south corner, the part that juts out the furthest towards the river, which is today is the Brandon Strip. And right then you can reach dockage at that point. So essentially this would not be suitable for any kind of, like, if you try to build condos there with a marina in front of it, like our other condos, you can't put a marina there because it's too shallow and it's got a stone, it's got granite bottom. So it can't be dug out or dredged or anything like that, except when you get out to the outer corner. So that's just enough to allow a visiting boater dockage to get into this facility. And that's really all we need. This property is also able to be super elevated because of its size. Now, what do we mean by super elevating a property? In the Habitable Grade zoning ordinance, the height of a building is measured from the average ground level at the perimeter of the building when it's finished, when it's built. So whatever grade is all the way around the building is averaged, and then you measure vertically, and that's your height limit. You can raise your grade. You can actually raise it a half a story if you want to put half of your underground parking in the ground and half out of the ground instead of all out of the ground. You can actually, by just gently bringing the land up, it allows you to let the top of the building be a half a story higher and still stay within our height restrictions. And a lot of jurisdictions measure that way, but some don't, but it's an advantage here. And the last thing I want to cover is what I consider to be the market appeal of a vision like this. I mentioned earlier that we are beautifully positioned on the I-95 corridor. We don't have to drive over into the Eastern Shore to get to us. We don't have to go way off the beaten path. We're right here. We're easy to find. We're easy to get to. We're quick to get to from any of the cities up and down the corridor that I mentioned earlier. We have Amtrak. We've got MARC trains. We've got, of course, 95 itself. This property is on direct waterfront, and it commands one of the most beautiful views of the Susquehanna River and out into the Chesapeake Bay. And that type of view doesn't exist anywhere else. Remember, this is the largest river in the eastern United States, and this is the corner of the largest river in the eastern U.S. with the largest estuarial bay in the world. They both come together here. That's extremely unique. Nearby amenities, nearby meaning within walking distance, are dining, shopping, entertainment, and museums. It's all within steps of this location. Havre de Grace is becoming quite a wedding town. We're having more and more weddings sought and performed here in Havre de Grace. A facility like this would greatly complement that, because while we've got some really neat places to get married, we don't have really nice accommodations for wedding parties and wedding dinners and overnight accommodations and so forth. We've got really cool B&Bs, but we have really nothing until you get all the way out to 95 in Aberdeen as a place to stay. And so I think that this would not only help that industry, but it would promote more of those weddings. Now, the bread and butter of such a place as this, in my vision, would be government and corporate conferences. And that's what we talk about, a mini conference center. Right? It means it's not a place, where you would have a grand exposition or a national convention or anything like that. This is where you would have small conferences and breakout rooms and stuff like that. And it would be extremely attractive to both government agencies and corporate conferences, special conferences. And when these participants come into town, if they choose to bring their spouse, this downtown gives their spouse something to do when these conferences are going on. They're not stuck out in the middle of nowhere like down in Cambridge or somewhere like that, where all they've got is the hotel and nothing else to do. So there's everything to do in this town. And if you don't like the food at the hotel, you've got plenty of other restaurants to go to. These centers up in Perryville, up at 95, both the casino and the proposed, and I forget the name of it. I think that a facility like this would greatly benefit from that and would greatly complement that as a place to come and stay while you're there doing that stuff. And finally, it's within such easy walking distance of everything downtown. So to wrap up what I'm proposing here, this fits a vision that reaches back almost 30 years in Havre de Grace. And it was at that time close to a unanimous vision. It fits our zoning ordinances. It has just an unprecedented location situation here that people would give their IT for anywhere else. And we've got this point in time where all of these properties are available at the same time. Now, the trick is to reach out and find the right investor, the right group that would be interested in this vision. We think and this is where you all come in, with the right sales pitch, with the right enthusiasm coming from the city and from the city's commissions and groups, that it makes it more attractive to the folks that would be putting up the money for this. And the only thing I didn't mention in this presentation so far was that it would be really cool if we had a top floor restaurant on this thing with that view. I mean, just astounding. The reason I'm involved in it is because I have been involved in this vision from 30 years ago, and it hasn't changed in my mind. It's just the time is right now. It's much more right now because of what's happened to Havre de Grace. My experience, I'm coming up on 18 years as chair of the Planning Commission, and I got a footnote here. I will have to recuse myself from the Planning Commission on any matters that deal with this for two reasons. Because I'm working directly with these property owners on behalf of one of the agents, and one of the agents is my lady friend. And so I cannot function as a voting member of the Planning Commission on anything that has to do with this property. So I'll just turn it over to the rest of the commission when it comes to that, even if I'm no longer on the commission. Well, if I'm no longer on it, I wouldn't be voting anyway. But even if this vision falls apart and something else happens to the property, I'm too involved with it, so I have to stand recused. I just want that to be out there. Any questions?
Yeah, this is Jason. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, no, I appreciate your bringing this up, and I definitely appreciate your vision as well. I think you're right. Being really the last good waterfront property here in town. We have the opportunity for the exact type of development that's going to continue to spur economic growth in our city. I just don't know, exactly how to go about the marketing aspect, who to talk to. With the zoning issues you brought up, the height requirements and all that, I mean, I think that those are probably easy fixes that we would, I'd assume, address with a site plan came to council. But, prior to that, even getting the money interested is the part that I struggle. Because the last thing I want to see that parcel become is, more condos. So, yeah, any insight into the market aspect would really appreciate.
I'm sorry, say again, the last thing you want to see is what?
The last thing I want to see happen is more condos.
Yeah. And I agree with that. Of course, it's going to be up to the property owners, what they want to go for. I know that at this moment, the property owners are very bought into this vision that I've just expressed to you. All three of these property owners, but they also have property that they're trying to sell. I know that all three property owners recognize what they've expressed to me, that the three properties are worth a lot more together than they are separate. That's a very important concept. And I know that none of the three property owners are in a situation where they've got to sell tomorrow morning. So that leaves them in a fairly decent position in that regard. And I know that all three property owners would like to see this property go towards something that would really be great for Habitat Grace. I mean, they have an altruistic feeling about this, even though they are willing to part with the property. And so in that regard, it's kind of got me excited because I see this as just a win-win-win opportunity for the city, for the sellers, and for the rest of downtown, particularly all the other businesses in downtown and even out beyond our city that would be affected by something like this. Any other? Yes.
So I absolutely agree with you that we desperately need hotel rooms and the conference center, because not just the weddings, but we're really trying to become an art magnet around here. Festivals, jazz and blues festivals, the other things we're doing here that we're trying to become focus area. So we need to be able to support that. I know when I worked at APG and you wanted to do a really good conference like we used to have in Waterloo, there's no place to put it. Now you have Water's Edge for weddings, but that wasn't really good for a business type event. You can't break it up very well. Is the city able to, and I know Eric and I talked about this, but incentivize an investor to come in to do something that somebody might look up and be more interested in?
I will comment on that. Cities always try to come up with ways of incentivizing or to sweeten the pot, but they want to see what it is first. And that way they can tell, usually when a city offers an incentive, which usually almost always involves money of some sort, or the reduction of a fee or this or that. A wise city government and a wise city elected officials will take the long view and say, okay, if we provide this incentive, is that going to pay off in spades back to us? In other words, is it going to ultimately be better financially for our taxpayers after we create that incentive? On the flip side, developers, particularly in the commercial arena, it would be almost unheard of for them to come here with a proposal and not ask for an incentive. Yes.
As a citizen and
Mhm.
people promoting economic development, are enthusiastic for your vision and believe in that. What I see as kind of the challenge is that you have a time when the hospitality industry is on the skids after the pandemic. And they're not sure when businesses are getting conventions together and when the government will start to travel and how much do we lose to Zoom and things like that. It make it probably a little more challenging to get commitments from people to do this. But just saying here, daydreaming when you talk about incentives. The state of Maryland gave $25 million to the Hyatt Hotel in Cambridge because Campbell Soup left the area and they wanted to create employment. Can we say we lost the hospital for that employment? The state of Maryland give us an incentive for a conference center. I'm just throwing crazy things out to help you. I don't know.
Well, that's what incentives are all about. And incentives are powerful. You'll agree. And usually those incentives are what does the trick. It's not just the pure economics of the proposal itself. And I think that a facility like this would be a shot in the arm for this city that we can't even imagine the bounds of at this time, at this city. Because when you start to really think it out and think of all the possibilities, they're almost endless. Having a facility here like this would make it far easier to get a mark station in Havertide Grace. If this was sitting here, make it a lot easier because, and as the activity picks up and picks up and picks up as a result of this, the interplay between downtown and this facility.
Can this be promoted at the ICSC convention where all of the hotel and the developers and the shopping center people go annually? It's a great big convention that's held in Las Vegas. I think the state of Maryland has a booth there. Would this be something that could be promoted there?
Well, you're getting a little bit out of my league when it comes to that sort of thing because, I mean, I don't know enough about how you go about this. And that's why I'm standing in front of you guys. All right.
Well, then I think that raises a general question of how the marketing, how can the assets that exist within the city and within this group be integrated into or at least given an opportunity to contribute to marketing contracts for this property. Is there a way to have that nexus?
I would certainly recommend it. It's just somebody's going to have to take the lead.
Well, may I suggest that the listing agent, who you know fairly well,
One of them.
Would then really maybe make contact with Erica, right? And then to the extent Erica feels that we can contribute, she bring it up. But it may well be that would be a follow-up presentation of our group. Obviously, ideas are formed and they come out. They're good ideas. I think Clark's idea is really, really great. Take it to, a time when that's a difficult industry, to think of where the industry is looking for revenue opportunities.
Well, would think that any investor that would be putting up hard money for a facility like this is going to be interested in knowing how many different ways this place can stay full. What different things can, if one thing's off, what what else is there to take its place. It's not, I mean, you can't just put a hotel and have it raised and expect it to survive. You know, this town's not big enough for anything like that. This has nothing to do with the local populace of the town and trying to serve them when their family comes to visit once in a blue moon. This is all about all these other things that I discussed. And the combination of those things are what I would think would make it unique and make it work financially. Now, to your question.
Excuse me,
And
this is Carrie Kearney. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question? Because those of us on the Zoom platform, we can't hear everything that like Julie or Warren or Clark said. Some of it's garbled. So can you repeat the question, please?
Well, let's see. Start over again, Warren.
How do we integrate the marketing?
Okay, got it. Warren's question is, how do we get the word out in a marketing sense to the nation, if you will? How do we go about marketing or pushing this concept and out to the folks that are capable of making it happen? Is that fair enough?
Yeah, and what participation level? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, how can we?
Okay, and I would think that one way to do it, and I haven't talked to any of our elected officials or the mayor or anybody about this idea that I'm getting ready to put out, is that if, since this would have such a far-reaching effect on the city itself, that the city might be interested in engaging a firm that specializes in promoting projects like this, that would know how to put together a piece. Now, I'm not talking about a huge amount of money here, but how to put together a piece and whose hands to put that piece in to describe this vision and describe this opportunity. In other words, I think we would, if we want to go that route, we would need outside help. What do you think, Clark? Now, would these three property owners just pony up money for that? I don't see it. I don't see it.
Well, to what extent does your listing agent have a marketing budget for this project?
No.
Or a marketing plan?
At the moment, it's just.
Did you hear that, Terry?
Does the agent of the one property, the pencil property, have a marketing plan?
Terry, did you hear that? Did you hear my question? Right?
Parts of it.
Okay, and basically, what kind of marketing strategy is in place now? Would you repeat that?
Yeah, what kind of marketing strategy is in place right now? This property just got listed a month ago. And the marketing strategy at the moment is simply the listing. It's listed. And that's as far as it's gone. And the property alone doesn't need a grandiose marketing strategy just to sell that listing. That listing, it can go residential or commercial. But as a standalone listing, they'll look beyond residential, commercial, multiple listing. And the same, I would say, pretty much goes for the other two properties. But taken as three together, it's a whole different picture. As of right now, I don't see the three property owners, even though they have a general consensus of agreement as to the vision. I don't see them combining their resources to do this.
I guess my question would be different, Warren. The agency that lists it typically will have some promotional capability. So,
Yes.
They put out listing sheets, they put out,
Right.
and they distribute those through some channel. And I guess the question is, you know, if you're doing that, how, if the listing agent's doing that, can we help?
Well, you've got two different listing agents.
Would you repeat that?
Yeah. If the listing agent, your question is if the listing agents, or you use the singular as if you agents, we're currently trying to market this property and they're doing something to promote the property. Would there be some way that the city could help? Is that what you're saying? I would think that the city would only want to get involved if they were trying to push the entire parcel, because that's the only thing that would truly benefit the city, other than just the normal tax base. That would be up to the city. That would start with recommendations from the department, economic development, planning, and so forth. And then it would rise to the mayor and city council. Probably have to be sponsored by a council person. This hasn't matured to that level yet.
Commercial brokers, the only move on right now with.
We got Beetle. I see Beetle sitting back there somewhere.
Some of those companies go out and they were trying to get a big hotel, where did they go?
Beal, are you still with us?
He's almost all we did.
Yeah, see, and David's not with us either, so.
Can I ask Robert, I know the city wants to take care of our own, but at a county level, to be able to impact the entire county, instead of bringing in major corporations to do the meetings here, or international type meetings from, APG. Is the county, is anybody in the county level who can help us?
Well, I think what it's the perfect avenue, and that's the meeting in Las Vegas. This is where developers of all types, whether it's shopping malls or grocery stores or hotels or any type of major project, this is their convention.
1,500 Maryland.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Erica goes every year.
But you're not gonna go to that meeting unless you have the package prepared, with the pictures, with the everything.
The stair steps that you have to take right now is, here you have three separate properties that happen to be make up a city block that are on the market with three separate agents, correct?
Well, two agents. The third one's not on them. The third one is available. It's not on them. It's not listed, but it's available. That's the Brandon. Yeah.
So, I mean, first you have to go, I mean, if the city is really eager about this, it sounds like an enormous opportunity to do something with that waterfront property. If the person to get together and say, okay, talk with the city fathers, those, the powers that be, and does it sound like a good idea? And then, let's come up with a strategy of, okay, how do we put this together? And then, look at voting on the regulations and all of that. And if all of those things look good or can be worked around for this basic concept, then you put together a package. And, and kind of solid, then you reach out and either through, someone in it locally in the knowledge. Erica helped well you in knowing a lot of these developers and companies in that particular.
Well, Peter was back. Now his chair is empty. His chair is empty. You see his quill.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Please.
So as far as knowing the developers who work with hotels and U.S. hotels groups and those sorts of things, I've done the ICSC in Las Vegas a couple of times, not while working for the City of Habitat Grace and Economic Development, but in another capacity prior to this job. I do go to the ICSC that's held at National Harbor, and the Mid-Atlantic ICSC and the International Economic Development Council events, specifically so I get face time with the developers, those who are kicking the tires, looking for, I'm specifically needing 3 acres of property. I want a water view, and we're looking to do an X number of rooms. So it's a constant. It's something that you always do. They're never going to call you on the phone. They're going to call a site locator, tell the site locator what they're looking for, and we answer those calls. But staying in front of them, having that first name basis, being able to walk up to someone and speak to them directly about what they're looking for and have the answers is always vital. What I found, one of the most successful things that I've done in an International Council of Shopping Centers event is being able to be side by side with someone who's trying to develop a parcel and say, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. That I'm the Economic Development Director of the City of Havre de Grace, and we're very much in support of seeing this project move forward, gives that developer the chance to say, I've got an opportunity for fast track zoning. They're not going to hold me up. I'm going to be able to move forward with this project and not lose money waiting for it to come to fruition. And in this day and age, that is huge. So that's part and parcel of being able to be that marketing side. But I think having a marketing plan and having someone that is professional, whether it is with McKinsey Group, which is Beadle's organization, and saying, what are your traffic counts? What are the number of weddings that are going on? How many people do you expect to be in this area? How many soccer moms do you have? What are the demographics that you're looking at, Mr. Developer, on this parcel of property? How many cars go past it every day or on 40 or across the bridge? Those are items that are attainable through a larger marketing firm and really help to make the decisions when we're one of 3 locations that can be chosen.
Thanks, Erica. And is Beetle back? There he is. Hey, Beetle.
I'm here.
So your question, Warren, your question for Beetle was?
The commercial, I guess it wasn't leased much, I think. Well, with consolidated marketing, I think someone then subsetted that and said, how does McKinsey market a property? How, if you had this property, how would you go about marketing?
Did you hear that, Beetle?
I think so. First of all, they'd have to have the listing for all the properties. Then they would get together with the owners and find out exactly what they want. Then we put our development team together to figure out what we feel the best and use would be, and then market it that way.
And you're marketing how, well, not to
They'd put a package together and deliver it nationally to the market.
Thanks, Beetle. I think probably, this is just my impression. If there are 2 listing agents.
Yes.
Got together and the city and the county came to the table just to prepare concept. Okay? I wouldn't get into the weeds yet of developing marketing materials and who pays what tax incentives are they, because that often is only, that applies to individual, who the prospect is. But I do think that but to trigger the expertise of, of the economic development county, economic development city, you kind of need to have the folks that are carrying the ball take the lead. Now, I don't know if they talk to each other, or that would be my suggestion.
Yeah,
Get all parties to get the most, do the same thing about going in, because that minimizes your cost, really,
sure.
if you have all that information.
But, having said that, I think as the board that we are, go back, as the board to go back and see, say, you know, in present presentation and the way forward, and, you know, I refuse to say city fathers, I'll say city leaders. Sorry. People leave around more than hand up for themselves. I gotta close up downstairs, okay? And, you know, considering the ways that they can support us, not just wait for the two, states to pop up front. Our opinion would mean a lot if we write that up.
I don't disagree, Julie. I think what I'm saying is design. Oh, this is ideal for TIP, if these are the uses or whatever, yeah, I mean, we can do that. Or this use, we prefer this use, or,
So you're saying wait?
no, I'm not saying wait.
Maybe consider, or you want to write now, or?
Well, I don't know, the project. I guess I don't, you have a better vision for the project than I do. I'm not sure what who the letter would even go to.
On there and speak up.
What specifically would the letter say?
You know, how is best to market this, how is best to incentivize this, and we can't let this opportunity go to waste.
Okay, I guess I was not taking that to the formal letter point, but that could be done certainly. No problem. I was suggesting that combined with the agents take the initiative to go to the county and city, but if you would a letter from us to counties where the city's participation formal, fine. Is that what we want to do?
Well, the purpose of my appearing before you was, number one, just to simply give you a briefing on the status of this combined real estate offering, and to present a vision to you that's been in existence for almost 30 years. After having done both of those things, and of course, to lay out all the possibilities and the supporting thinking that I could come up with. Beyond that, I don't have the expertise to market this property. I'm not a real estate agent. I certainly can't offer the kind of knowledge and services that a firm such as Beatles can. And I know that these listings are quite separate from each other. There's probably little chance that these listings would be combined under one agency, from what I know of what's transpired so far. But I do know that the three property owners are very cooperative with each other. Okay. So in a sense, this is just at its very budding stage right now. And it's an unusual situation. It's a rather unusual situation from a real estate perspective, as I see it, you know, with three coming on at the same time simultaneously. And with the way these properties are structured physically, and with the individual constraints that existed on each parcel, those constraints that exist for each parcel would disappear if they were combined as 3 parcels into one. Then those constraints don't mean anything anymore. And so that's a physical consideration. So I'm actually come to you to see what your suggestions are as to how this can be taken to the next level. And from what I'm hearing from the individual expertise of some of your members and from Warren and Erica, we could either go the political route by starting with city council, mayor, county council, county executive, and go that route, and city and county economic development departments and push it from that direction. Or we could go at it from a totally marketing perspective, where a marketing firm is engaged that specializes in this sort of thing, but would do so without necessarily taking the combined listings, the real estate listings, because I don't think these owners are going to let that happen. So they're going to stick with their.
Do this, but what would be helpful in marketing is if you eliminate some of the abstract things and spend a little money and say, this can fit X number of rooms, X number of thousands, X number of parking spaces. Define some of those things that like their appetite.
It stokes their interest.
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
I really think we should be reaching out to developers like Beagle with this company or other developers. Come in, just lay out, say, look, these 3 properties are available, and just let them say, yeah, this is something that we may be able to get traction. Try to bring the county in on anything of this junction just as not even the concept of it is significantly premature. I think it's just to get this thing cohesive and get the concept of it.
Well, I agree with you. I think the marketing approach is the way to go.
Maybe informal conversations with the powers that be, just to see what their thoughts are. If it's something that they're enthusiastic about as you move forward in these other arenas. But until you really get that type of information from people like Beetle and couple like you that do this every day.
Yeah, right.
Demographic information about corporations. It's kind of,
One of the property owners, that's something out on Facebook, said, wouldn't it be great to have a beach house? And there was an avalanche of answers saying, oh no, let's buy it, make it, the city buy it and make it a park. Or we don't need more park. Like that is so short-sighted. Mention center could just totally just change the city so much. The economic benefit of all of us. And the impact will run back to Park District, having 1,000 people. Broadway shows, Broadway travels, don't help. And nobody really likes to stay in Aberdeen from the little baseball court running around. So that's why I'm sort of encouraging for the board to say, hey, you really think this is the way you'd like to consider doing that? They consider, popping up some money to get the study like this done, or help us move it forward rather than waiting.
If you have 2 or 3 hotels in New Orleans, St. Michael's, I don't think we can say Avery doesn't deserve or the hotel. And I know some of the hotel operators would like to say that, but I think we have all the charm that's in St. Michael's and maybe more, but a much better location on 95 and it should, with all the people on have a hotel in Hampton.
You know, the executive of Erica met with hotel developers and they explained to us in detail. You know, basically it's a matter of numbers. I think we all know the folks who put in the hotels at White Marsh.
Also, I've heard the story, but sometimes.
But I think the boutique hotel, I'm very sensitive to the convention, APG convention needs, because that, at the Heat Center, had that gone forward, that was the next building, was a convention center. Because there is and we said, oh, the Donaldson Brown Center, well, it just doesn't work. And, so they were saying, oh, we have to go to the Pentagon for all these minor conferences. And, we'd like to have them on board. So I think, but on the other hand, I'm a little, for me, okay, not chairman, but as Warren, I would say, I would sit down with Beadle and David and talk to them and get some kind of professional insight before I'd be going to the city and saying a concept that's an idea. I'd like to, I guess that's to have Erica's expertise and Beadle's and David's, I think would be a positive. But again, I'm speaking, as I say, Julie, I'm speaking as Warren, not as the chairman. If we want to have a motion to go to the city, then here's what I would propose, make a motion with a draft letter, and I would specifically suggest to you, draft a letter for review. I don't care, if we can send it out and do it electronic. And get a consensus that way. We don't have to wait till the next meeting. But does that make sense?
So, we want to have that sidebar meeting with Erica and Beadle and everybody to discuss this and how they feel about it. I think most of them are sort of nodding. Do we want to have that meeting, or do we want to go ahead and just write the letter saying we want to pursue this further and then have it discussed? Which way does it go?
Which way does it go? Consensus. Do we, here comes Eric.
While we were debating, I contacted one of my developer friends who does presentations for marketing groups and for hotels, for malls, for large corporate developments in downtown Baltimore. And he's agreed to meet with you and talk to you about putting together, for no charge whatsoever, a design for those properties.
Wow. Yeah. Good work. Well done.
Well, any day this week?
Really, it was.
I'll get with you tomorrow morning.
was advocating the former, you seem to be advocating the latter. If we put it in the form of a motion, we vote on it and, so move, do I hear a motion that we write a letter, draft a letter now, for this, for a presentation to the city concerning the value of this product?
Did everyone hear the Chairman?
Do I hear a motion? What I was just saying, Julie posed a question. Do we want to have a meeting with the interested parties, but certainly roping in Beadle and David as commercial realtors and Erica, and then write a letter to the city supporting the project? Or do we want to write a letter now that's conceptual and send that to the city in advance of any activity? And what I then said was, and I think that's what Julie was proposing. Is that a fair? Okay. So in other words, she was proposing the latter, that we go ahead, and I responded to her that she could draft, if she was willing, she could draft a letter, we could circulate it electronically and do it that way, get approval. So I said, do we have a motion that we draft a letter now in advance of further investigation and for review by the EDAP?
Personally, conceptually, this would be good for Haverty Grace. I think we support that conceptually.
Right.
I think there's a lot more details that need to be worked out to try and really get this marketed. But I think conceptually, at the point in the stage that Haverty Grace is in their growth and revitalization, this would be a wonderful a tribute to all of the other things that we're doing. So I'm not opposed to conceptually saying we support this, voting on that, someone drafting a letter that we can look at it. I don't know, getting down in the weeds of the marketing, I don't think it's going to make a difference. Either we like it conceptually or we don't. That's my feeling.
So Clark has moved that we draft
I
the
did.
Julie draft the letter. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Somebody light up the board.
I'll second it, but I was kind of hoping someone else besides me and
Who else is still online?
This
I'll
is
second.
Terry. This is
Okay.
Terry Kearney. I'm going to abstain because I couldn't hear half of what you all were saying in the chambers. I couldn't hear a lot of what you were saying, so I'm going to abstain this time.
I'm sorry, Terry. Okay, we've got a motion on the floor.
Warren,
Yeah.
Warren, it's Beadle. I would second that because it's a conceptual idea, and definitely it would be good for Haverty Grace.
Okay. So what we have a motion on the floor that a letter be drafted and circulated among EDAB supporting this project as an important economic, timely, important economic and community development initiative for Haverty Grace. And is that fair? And Julie has volunteered to write that letter. So, any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye or raise your hand if you're on screen.
Aye.
Aye, I'm sorry. Okay, roll call vote. Who do we still have on? So Beadle Smith is an aye.
Correct.
Warren Hartenstein is an aye. I think Mike Allen had to leave us to chair another meeting at 5. David's not here. Terry Kearney, are you an abstention or an aye?
Abstention.
Okay. Lisa Robertson's not here. Julie Rumke is an aye. Lisa Scott Coleman is not here. Paul Sobis still with us?
Yes, Warren, I had to abstain as well. I'm having a difficult time following this. I can't hear too well.
Okay, sorry. Maria Terry, are you with us?
Yes, I'm an aye.
Clark Turner, are you with us? Malcolm George. Malcolm has some a medical thing going on. Richard, Rick, what you say, Rick Wainer?
Aye.
Okay. So you have it. Okay, so the motion carries. Julie's gonna go to work. We'll circulate it. Thank you, Volney.
Thank you very much.
Really are. And Volney is still the chairman of the planning commission, and I'm honored to serve with him
Great commitment.
under his leadership. Okay, well, we're about to adjourn. We're gonna, without objection, what I would suggest is we waive the rest of the agenda. I do want Clark, hear this. I do want to remind everybody that nominations are typically done for the May meeting and elections are done for the June meeting. Now they don't have to be done coming to the meeting and saying aye. And I believe that David, is not interested in continuing as secretary. So, all right. Okay. Without objection, then we'll adjourn. It's been a long meeting. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Two great